Welcome to The Impossible, where we empower others to face the impossible, inspire them to be impossible, and motivate them to do the impossible. I'm Matt, and we're back this week with my brother, Austin Douglas. How you doing today, sir?
Fantastic. Hello, everyone.
This week we have a really awesome episode to bring you guys. And when I was kind of thinking about what we were going to discuss this week, I went back to some of the thoughts from one of the greatest to ever do it, Mr. Arnold Schwarzenegger. And he was quoted in saying how the pain we face today becomes the strength we gain tomorrow. And how those last 3 to 4 reps, the 3 to 4 reps that exist beyond when your mind wants to give up, beyond when you think your body can even go further. He said those 3 to 4 reps are what differentiates a champion from an average person. And he put particular emphasis on how we take these moments, these few 3 to 4 reps amongst hundreds or thousands that would occur in a training cycle. And he talks about how those 3 to 4 reps can make all the difference, and how everything comes down to those minute details that it takes to become a champion. And certainly, he's one of the greatest champions to ever live in the sport of bodybuilding. And Austin and I have both always had extreme respect and reverence for bodybuilders. We've had a few on the show before because of the incredible mental strength and fortitude it takes to push your body to the edge that you have to be able to step on stage with the appearance you need, both from a training perspective and especially from a nutrition standpoint. It requires extreme amounts of mental discipline. And we were recently honored to be able to see some of the videos and the photos from Mr. Jackson Dingess as he stepped on stage and competed here in the past few months. And he put together a physique that was leagues beyond anything he'd been able to do before. And now he's carrying that same discipline, that same motivation, that same mindset going forward as he chases his pro card in bodybuilding. So we're incredibly honored to have him discuss some of these thoughts today. Mr. Jackson Dingess, how you doing today, sir?
Doing well. It's good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks, man.
I wanted to open up first, just kind of talking about some of those thoughts from Arnold, because I've always viewed, and again, neither of us have competed in bodybuilding, so it's a sport we've been around for a long time, being in powerlifting, but it's not one that we understand nearly to the level that you do. But I've always been fascinated by the mental strength it takes to compete in that sport. I feel like it's not one that people on the outside always see as easily. You know, they see the cool training videos online. You know, they may see people carrying around eating 6 meals a day, but I don't know that they always see the times where you're going down below 5% body fat and all you want to do is eat everything in existence, and you have to force yourself not to.
Right.
Yeah. What's it taken to build some of that mental discipline?
Just the mindset to never be content with where you're at and to never give up, and just to keep pushing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you're gonna face these mental battles where, like, you're starving, you've still got 4 weeks till your show, and you're like, okay, like, you're laying in bed, you can't sleep because you're so hungry, and you've already eaten all your meals, so you're just there, and you just
You're just laying
you
there.
don't give in.
What's going through your mind? And, like, what keeps you from giving in, though?
Just chasing a goal. You know, I always have the show in mind, how I'm going to look, and then another thing that helps a lot is looking at my progression. Mm-hmm. So, like, from 16 weeks out to 15, or like from 16 to 10, like, you can see the drastic changes, especially once you get into like 5-6 weeks out. You're seeing changes like almost every day.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would suppose at that point you're going to see, like, every day you're going to see, like, new veins or new striations. You're going to have something come up when you're that low body fat percentage.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's definitely tough, but just seeing the progression and knowing where I'm at now and where I want to be, I just keep pushing.
Mm-hmm. So you're really kind of rooting yourself, anchoring yourself in that goal that you want to achieve.
Right. Like, I know if I want to be pro one day, if I quit now, there's no way I'm going to make it. So
yeah, and
it's only going to get harder.
Yeah. And like Arnold said too, you know, it's those 3 to 4 reps, those small little pieces that some people would deem insignificant. Like those are the pieces that differentiate your average person from the champion. And I would
Right.
imagine the same thing applies when it comes to nutrition as well.
Absolutely.
The meals that you force yourself to not have when you want to eat everything, as well as meals that you force yourself to eat when you're growing, I imagine.
Yeah, it's like two completely different. I mean, they're both hard in their own way. Like there's two different challenges. Like right now, I'm in a growth phase. I'm eating like close to 4,000 calories of clean food. And it doesn't seem like a lot when you think about it. It's like 4,000 calories. You can go eat that at McDonald's in like 2 meals.
Yeah.
But when it's all like chicken and rice and cream of rice and ground beef, like you're sitting here, you're on like meal 5 and you want to throw up and you're like, well, I got to get it down.
Yeah.
Like when I was
day after day, you're doing that too.
Yeah, like when I was first starting with Jaden, because Jaden LeCarrier is my coach, as you guys already know.
Yeah.
It was like my first off season with him. I was like, man, this is a lot of food. Like, I don't know if I can do this. He just sent me a text on WhatsApp. He was like, that's tough. Keep going.
I love
awesome.
Jaden's mindset because he just like he sees nothing but like the job to be done. Like
Right.
when it comes to especially bodybuilding, like he just sees that and he's like, I don't have any in that moment he's like, I don't have any, like you either do it or you don't. Like and he just puts it in that plain simple terms, and I just kind of I love his approach in that because it just brings forward the stark reality of what it is. Like bodybuilding is an extremely competitive sport.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's an individual sport. Like you have your support system, you have your coach, and they can all help you and guide you along the way. But it's up to you if you're going to do it or not. Like it's hard.
Yeah.
And
only you can step on that stage in the shape you can be in.
Right. And you just have to grit your teeth and keep pushing.
Yeah. I imagine it's got to be because it's so. The battle is so individual like that. I imagine it's got to be incredibly rewarding in that same way. Like when you did step on stage and you got those photos and you got the judges' comments, and one day when you get your pro card, I'm sure like the reward, because the challenge and the pain and the suffering is, kind of 10x, but it's all on your shoulders. I imagine the reward has to be a lot of the same way.
Oh, it's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
There's nothing like stepping on that stage.
Yeah.
Especially whenever you step on stage and you finally get where you're going, you win. Like,
Did you win your most recent show you did?
I did. I won my class, and then I
nice.
came in second in the overall.
Oh, nice.
And
nice.
I lost out to a guy that weighed in at 264. I weighed in at 184.
Holy
So gave up a lot of size there.
So do you have a weight class or a weight cap in what you're in the division you're in?
Yeah, so I'm in Classic Physique. So the weight caps are different. So like I think that guy was like 6'4" or so.
Holy wow.
So my weight cap, I'm like just above 5'7".
Okay.
Like maybe a tenth of an inch
Okay.
above 5'7". So I'm 187 on stage.
Okay.
And I didn't know where I was gonna hide in at because I never hid in for Classic.
Yeah.
So if they hided me in at 5'7" exactly, I would lose 5 pounds on my cap.
Oh, really?
So like for weigh-ins, like I'm trying to suck down to 182 and stay down
Yeah.
there just in case I don't make my height.
Man.
But
That's a whole nother. So do they go on I guess I never considered the height perspective. Is it for like every inch you have a weight cap or?
yeah.
Really?
Yeah, so like from 5'6" to 5'7", you're 182. And then if you're just over 5'7", so if you're 5'7" to 5'8", you get an extra 5 pounds.
Wow. I didn't realize it was like
Okay.
that specific at all.
Right.
I assumed it was just like the weight cap was for anybody in your class. Like you all out.
Yeah, so everybody has a different weight cap. So Class B was the class I was in, and I forget exactly which heights that goes up to. I think it's like 5'7" to 5'10".
Okay.
But so I won Class B, and then for the overall, it's just you face the winners of each class.
Okay.
So I'm facing this guy that's 264, like monstrous in
Very
the
different
overall.
weight cap.
Yeah.
Very difficult.
Oh, that's wild, man. So how do you? So remind me. You said your weight cap was what was your weight cap at 5'7"?
It was 187,
187, and you weighed in at what?
184.
184. So how will you keep going forward then? Because your height's not going to change at this
Right.
point. How do you keep building a better physique if you can't really add on that much more weight?
So I could have came down more too.
Okay.
Like I could have probably sucked down to like if I really wanted to suffer, like 178, because my lowest weight of prep was a little over 181, not quite 182. It was like 181.5.
And what are you like right now for contrast?
I'm weighing in about 221 in the mornings.
That's a big difference.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I started last prep at 223 and then
man.
got down to 181 at my lowest.
Okay.
So
That's
a lot of
wild,
weight.
dude. Yeah.
But as far as like just making improvements within the cap, it's you got to walk a fine line. Like you have to know when you can still make your cap and still fill out and look good and be able to, place well or win. Because a lot of guys will outgrow the Classic Physique cap.
I see.
And then they keep trying to suck down, so they're sucking off too much of their muscle, too much size to get down, and they just end up looking stringy and they can't fill out and they're flat. And they don't have any pop to them on stage.
Okay.
But where I'm at right now, could have got down to about 178 if I really needed to. So, that gives me like 8 pounds to put on. And I don't think I need the whole 8 pounds because like the feedback I got from the judges after the show, like they said I looked great. I seemed to come in a little bit tighter, so diet a little bit harder.
Yeah. Okay. And 8 pounds of muscle is pretty substantial.
Yeah, and then they just said, fill in my lower lats a little bit more, keep filling in my hamstrings, and then maybe a little bit more on my quad sweep, and I'll be there.
And that's another aspect to bodybuilding that I think maybe a lot of people who don't compete in the sport don't always realize is the incredible amount of patience it takes. Like Jaden, your coach you're talking about, who was on this podcast this past winter, he just competed in his first pro show. And he looked phenomenal and say, like, I couldn't believe the changes he's made in just the past year alone. But then in the follow-up recap that he posted online, he was talking about all the feedback they gave him, how everything was really positive. He just really needs more size, which just takes time at this point. Right. And so he was talking about, I might compete again in New York 2027. I'm like, man. And he just started training for, the next show, which may be that show a year and a half from now. He started that like today or yesterday was the day after he competed. And I'm like, man, the amount of patience it would have to take to just think, okay, I'm going right back to the same thing I've been doing. And the next goal is now a year and a half away.
Yeah, at that point, it really does become a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because your next show might not be for 2 years, like if you have to put on a lot of size like he does, which, he just stepped up to the pro level. So it's a whole different league.
Yeah.
But
what are some of the biggest changes when you go from like, is it like amateur before you go to pro?
Yeah.
What's the biggest changes in some of the transition between there?
So, you got to think you're facing all of the best amateurs from the previous years.
Yeah.
So, there are some really good amateurs that don't go pro ever. Like, it just doesn't happen for them. So, you're facing the best of the best at every single show. And these guys might be like 35 or 40, and like he's 26, so he's just getting started in his pro career. Yeah. So they're almost to the point where they've maxed out their physiques, and he's just getting started.
Yeah, that's wild because here I am talking about a year and a half out, and he's looking at like I got like 15 years to go.
Right. Yeah. At least 10 for sure. But like with the longevity he has, like he'll probably make it to 40 easy.
I like what you said about making it a lifestyle because I think that's the only way you could really. Like you just make it part of your life, like part of what you do. Like for me, I take care of. I feed my daughter every day. I change her diapers. Like it's part of my lifestyle now.
Right.
And so I think you'd have to adopt something like bodybuilding the exact same way, which I don't see as much. Like even in the sport of powerlifting, like we can easily compete 3-4. I know some people compete 5 or 6 times a year, especially the old school guys back in the West Side days.
Right.
They'd compete that often. But you don't tend to see that same thing in bodybuilding. Like powerlifting doesn't seem like it requires nearly the same patience. There's certainly discipline with training and recovery, but not always the same amount of discipline when it comes to diet and nutrition. And so it doesn't, like while it's part of your life, part of what you do, it doesn't seem to kind of envelop every aspect of your life like bodybuilding can in a lot of ways.
Right. Like with Jaden, you said he's already thinking about New York Pro in 2027, and that's the mindset you have to have to improve and to keep doing well in the sport because you've got guys that are just as hungry as you, that have just as good or better genetics, they're working just as hard as you. Like you can't take a day off.
Yeah.
You have to always be locked in 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, excuse me, a lot of guys like to talk about non-negotiables. Like Seth Feroce, he talks about that a lot. And like your training and nutrition have to be one of your non-negotiables. Like it's something you're going to do every day when you have to.
Yeah.
Like you have to make time for it.
Yeah. And I think no matter what position you're in life, like if it's important enough to you, you'll make time for it.
Exactly.
Like you'll figure it out. Like Seth, that dude also freaking like he's another guy that's not super tall, but he's just ginormous. Like when you see him in real life, I can't even make my brain understand how big that dude is.
And it's crazy because he's not even pushing bodybuilding hard right now. Like he's retired. Yeah. He's just living.
He's just having fun.
He's training for fun. He's like throwing sandbags around,
Yeah,
you know.
that's crazy. Because he owns, is it Axe and Sledge that he owns?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's got a few kids as well and a family. And so he's getting pulled in a lot of different directions. But he very clearly makes training and nutrition still a non-negotiable for him, even though it may look different than it did back in his competitive bodybuilding days. You know, it's like it's still a non-negotiable, something he's designed around his lifestyle. What's because I really like this aspect of just describing it as a lifestyle. How do you, for somebody who's maybe even they're not even thinking about competing at all yet, they're just like getting into the gym, they're starting to train, they're wanting to kind of change their life around, change how they look, change how they feel, change how they perform. How do they go about building that lifestyle?
Right. I mean, I was there at one point too. Like, I mean, I started in the gym like when I was about 16.
Okay.
But that was just, you know, lifting.
Yeah.
I wasn't actually training.
Yeah,
I was like lifting in my off season for
We
football.
all have to have
and,
that,
you know,
that period
doing
of
like half
it.
reps on squat, thinking I'm doing something. And my coach is just like, yeah, you know, he's hyping me up. And I'm squatting like maybe 135.
We all gotta have those days.
But I mean, when I graduated, I was 145, and that was that was 5 years ago.
Okay. That was 5 years. How old are you now?
23.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay.
Yep.
So how long have you been competing then?
I did my first bodybuilding show in 2022.
Okay.
So
that was just a little over 3 years ago now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, about 3 years ago. So this was my second show.
Okay. So in 3 years' time, you've competed twice.
Yep.
And made pretty substantial changes. Like I couldn't believe the pictures from when you post them side by side here recently, the first show versus the second show.
It was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But whenever I did my first show, I really didn't have a great understanding of bodybuilding or really much about the sport. I just knew I was like, I want to do a show. You know, like I want to be a bodybuilder, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, like I dieted down. I looked okay. Like I got second in the bodybuilding class in the light heavies, which wasn't bad. Granted, it was a very weak lineup, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But, and like the feedback I got from the judges was so bad, dude. like, I got an email from the judge because they weren't doing like in-person feedback there. Like you have to email them and wait for a reply.
Oh, God.
So I email this guy, send him like my pictures, and the first thing I see in like giant bold letters is, "Did you even diet?"
Oh my God.
I was like, all right, well, you got a lot of work to do.
Is it always that ruthless?
No.
It just kind of depends on the judge.
I mean, if you look that bad, it'll be ruthless, but I mean, they're not going to sugarcoat it. They're getting paid to be there.
Yeah.
And whenever they do their feedback, they don't get paid for that. Like, they're just taking time out of their day to give you feedback. So they're not getting anything out of it. They're just telling you what's up.
Yeah.
And giving their honest opinion.
Yeah, I'd imagine there's an aspect of it too that's like kind of gatekeeping to the sport, in the sense that like the people who have gone that far, because I assume most judges have probably competed themselves before, correct?
Most, yeah.
Yeah, so I'd imagine to like they would want to kind of keep that kind of aspect to the sport where it is incredibly disciplined. Like people are working 100% in every area. And so I imagine they'd want to be, extra critical to kind of protect that mindset around the sport as well as to help keep pushing the sport forward.
Right. But back to your previous question about how you asked how someone develops that mindset, like that's just starting, like how to improve. I mean, the first step is just getting in the gym.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you have to nail your diet, but it really depends on what your goal is, because if you just want to drop some fat and you want to look better, like anybody can do that. You gotta get in the gym and just go from there. Like, you can look up stuff on YouTube. That's what I started doing. Like, when I first started getting in the gym, I had no idea what I was doing. I'm on YouTube. I'm like watching all these videos. I'm in my dorm room eating like French toast, French toast dipped in egg whites for protein.
Yeah, bench toast, as Paul likes to call it.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
But, and then another thing is, when you first start, you may not want to do it. Like, you might have a goal, like, okay, I want to drop this much weight, or, I want to lose so many sizes on my jeans or whatever. Well, the first step's getting in the gym. You might not want to do that, and you might not like your diet, but you have to find something about it that you enjoy, and you have to focus on that. Whether it's you enjoy the training, but you don't enjoy the diet, well, the diet's going to feed your training. So if you just lock in on the training, you're like, okay, well, I love doing this, so I have to have a diet that's going to support my training. Or, I really like the progress I'm making in the mirror. How am I going to keep that going? It's by following this diet.
I really like that perspective a lot. It's focusing on basically the kind of the reward mechanism of it. And
right.
Finding rewards for yourself to keep yourself going, even when you have all these areas that you don't want to keep going forward. And like, I would imagine those nights where you're like laying awake because you're so hungry, one of the things you got to be thinking about is, but think about how good I'm going to look when I get in the mirror the next morning.
Right. Yeah. And at some point it really becomes like a mind game, because once you get so lean, then you start looking worse, because you still have to pull down because you're not quite lean enough, but you're depleting your body of all your glycogen stores. You're dehydrated, so you just keep looking flatter and flatter, and your lines start going away. And every day you're sending your coach your check-ins, and you're like, why do I look worse every day? Like, I'm 2 weeks out. I should be looking great right now. Yeah. But
then there's a lot that goes into it with because I know you'll load up on carbohydrates and even some sodium right before the show, right, to try to replenish a lot of that.
Right. So yeah, that's what everybody calls peak week.
Okay.
Which my peak week didn't start until the day of weigh-ins, because I have to make my weight cap.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, if they're not close on their weight cap, they'll start loading carbs slowly a week before the show, or maybe 3 or 4 days before the show. And that's when you start to get your physique back. All your lines start coming back. You start popping more, your shoulders get rounder, that kind of thing.
And in those moments where you talk about how you start looking worse, so that eventually come show day you can look better, I imagine that's got to be a crazy mind game, because then those little micro rewards of waking up every morning go away. And when you wake up and you're deathly hungry and you don't feel like you look as good, that's just a double whammy attacking you. Does having a really good coach help get you through that, in the sense that I'm sure Jaden is able to tell you hey, I know it doesn't look great right now, but this is exactly where we want you. I like how things are going.
Absolutely. Having a knowledgeable coach it's been a great help. I definitely wouldn't be where I'm at right now if I didn't have him as my coach.
When did you start working with Jaden?
2021.
Okay.
Yeah. It was.
So he helped coach you up into your first show then, even?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
I've been with him since I started.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. It's good to have that really long-term coaching relationship too, because I imagine, especially in bodybuilding, they learn different things about you specifically, and they may know how your body can, shift water or glycogen, or even how you recover from training and things like that.
Right. A lot of people coach hop. So they'll get a coach, and a lot of them don't even have coaches that are off season, or the same coach. So maybe I have one coach coach me through my off season, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm done with this guy. I'm going to get a new coach to diet me down for my show. So I get a coach that diets me down for my show, and I don't like my replacing. So I get another new coach. Well, if you don't stick with the same coach for at least a couple shows, they're not going to learn your body. They're not going to learn how you respond. And it's just throwing darts and you're blindfolded. You're just guessing and hoping something sticks.
Yeah. It's definitely a big a big challenge when you're like switching coaches. And I see it a lot in powerlifting too, where people are just like, they feel like they're not getting stronger, so they just switch coaches. They just like switch all the time. And I had actually had Jaden as my coach for about a year and a half, 2 years, when I was like getting really competitive there. And he was like the first like real powerlifting coach I'd ever had. I'd had some guys like write me some programs before, but that was all like self-guided. And then I actually made the decision to switch this past April from him to Curtis Miller. And it had nothing to do with like anything that like, it wasn't like I felt like Jaden was doing something wrong or anything like that. It was merely, I just wanted to make a shift to somebody who thought a little bit differently than I did, and who was a little more like calculated with everything, and who has some very different training styles to pull up some weak areas that I had. And Curtis, specializes in squat and deadlift, which Jaden was an incredible squatter as well. And it's ended up paying off really well, and Jaden fully understood. And I discussed the change with him and everything. But it's ended up paying off well, but we have run into some of those issues. Nothing against Curtis at all. It's just the fact that like we've only been working together a couple months, so there's like some things that I have to be ultra clear in communicating with him, and just like knowing like, hey, this is how my body responds to things, just things he wouldn't know because we've only been together a few months. So
Right, and it's okay to switch coaches. I'm not dogging people that do switch coaches because there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But you have to know when to do it. Mm-hmm. Like you can't just switch coaches on a whim and just keep doing that over and over again. At some point, you have to do some self-reflection. Realize maybe it's not all on your coach. Maybe it's something you're not doing.
Yeah, 100%. And it's always, I imagine, got to be like a very logic-based decision. Like if you're ever making those decisions based out of emotion, it's generally not going to be your best decision. But I've seen people before just get, pissed off and angry at like, well, I'm not getting stronger, so I'm just going to go to a totally new coach, totally new style.
Right.
And it just like, then you're just starting over from square one. Sometimes you just got to trust the process. I imagine, especially in bodybuilding.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So going back to that like lifestyle piece, because I think this is the piece that gets a lot of people tripped up, regardless of whether it's like bodybuilding, whatever your goal is in life. I think there's a certain amount of it that you have to build it into your lifestyle, especially when it's a big goal or an impossible goal that we would talk about. I know that year that I was training for the marathon, like I had to become a runner, like not just like this guy who like lifts weights and then runs on the slide. Like I had to become a runner. Like all the content I started taking, it was running content. I started buying more running shoes instead of more Jordans.
Yeah.
I buy way too many shoes. But like so many aspects of my life, like I got a running coach. I got, I started learning about all the theory behind running and peak. It's got its own like peaking program and process in and of itself. And so I really had to like make that a lot of my lifestyle that year to get to where I wanted to get with it. So you talk about how the first step for somebody who just wants to look better, feel better, perform better, maybe get a little stronger, they just got to get in the gym first.
Right.
And do you recommend like start the gym first and then kind of incorporate diet into it from there? Or do you recommend trying to look at a lot of different aspects kind of from the get-go?
It really depends on the person, because not everybody's able to just completely dive in and, they've got their diet on point, they've got their training on point, like they're just locked in. Like for me, like I was a really skinny guy, so I was like, okay, I want to get some muscle, so I'm going to get in the gym. Mm-hmm. And then once I got in the gym, started training for a while, I was like, okay, now I need to get my diet right, because if I'd done my research, or at least a little bit, and realized, okay, well, if I'm not eating this much protein and I'm not getting in like a certain amount of calories, I'm not going to grow. Even if I train, like I'm not going to be able to feed my muscles, and I'm not going to be able to recover good enough. So it's a case by case basis. Like some people, like if you just want to lose weight, maybe start with your diet first, because it's the easiest route. And then after that, like once you've been dieting for however long and you feel comfortable, you're like, okay, now I'm going to add in some more cardio, or now maybe I'll get in the gym, start training with some weights, especially if you hit a plateau and like you're somebody who wants to lose some weight. And, you know, you've just been cutting your calories and cutting your calories. At some point, something's got to give. Like, you can only cut your calories so low. You either have to move more or you have to eat less. And it gets to a point where you can't eat less anymore, so now you have to move more. So that's when your cardio comes in. Or, you know, maybe you've lost a bunch of weight and now you have some extra skin and you don't want to go and get the skin removal surgery. So how are you going to tighten up your skin again? You're going to add some muscle. So then that's when you start your training.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then going from kind of that perspective, because that's like the beginning of like getting into it. And I know we all kind of remember that. I've got like a lot of fond memories of that same kind of time where I first started getting into training. I was in college at that point. I was older. I was like 23, 24 when I started training. And I just remember those days of like waking up, going to train at 6 a.m. before class, you know, coming back, eat a meal. And like every meal I'm eating, I'm watching like YouTube videos, just about anything. I ended up diving into like the powerlifting route because it's what I ended up, it's a lot of what I ended up needing at that point in time, because I was coming out of a very dark place. And so a lot of the like anger and emotion you can bring to lifting heavy weights was really therapeutic for me. So that's just what really spoke to me, what I got into. But I remember there's like for probably a year and a half, 2 years, like that was just my routine, like eating food, watching YouTube videos about training, and then just like dreaming of my training like every single day. And that was a really cool time period. But how do you transition from there? Because I imagine you were probably in that kind of in a place like that at one point in time where you were training and kind of learning and, you know, figuring things out. And you even competed in powerlifting some.
Yeah, I did.
Then,
I did 3
freaking
meets.
Strong as hell. Yeah. Because what did you end up doing in powerlifting? Like your biggest numbers?
I mean, the first competition I did, I was 18, so I was like right out of high school, getting ready to go into college. I was actually in college at the time, and I was there, which is why I started training, was because I got a football scholarship to go and play football for this D2 college, and then my coaches are looking at me and they're like, "Hey, man, you're small." like I know, so that's why I started getting in the gym and started training really hard. But you know, we're like probably like 3 weeks away from our first game, and worked with Alan Haga for a little bit whenever I first got started. I got into his gym. Like, he was a family friend. He's like, "Hey, come to my gym. Like, we'll get you in shape." I was like, "Okay, cool." And like, he sends me a text like 3 weeks before our first game. He's like, "Hey, man, what are you doing Saturday?" I was like, nothing. I got a day off." "Why?" He was like, "All right, we're going to Toledo." I was like, "For what?" He was like, "Oh, I just entered you in USPF Nationals, so buckle up." I was like, "All right, well, let's get it, I guess."
No better way to do your first comp.
Yeah, right? Just jump into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I lifted 181, and I weighed in at like 172.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, under the weight cap.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what my numbers are. I know I deadlifted like a little over 400. I want to say like, actually, okay, no, I deadlifted like 452. Yeah.
Okay.
Squatted like 410, and then I ended up benching 303.
There you go.
So I mean, they weren't bad.
Yeah, your age and that weight, that's pretty good numbers.
Yeah, set some records in that federation. One best lifter, so
nice.
I wasn't mad about it. But
Good dot score. Yeah. So you were pretty strong back then too, and you're still very strong today.
Right.
But what did it take then, going from that transition of just kind of, you know, training in the gym from a more casual perspective and learning about it, to really building and establishing this lifestyle that you bring up of now it's like every day your main central focus, and like every meal's dedicated toward it, you know, your sleep at night's dedicated toward it, you know, your training in the gym's like so many aspects of your life, you've established this lifestyle. How did you go about building that transition?
Yeah, so when I was first starting out, like, it was just me and one of my buddies I graduated with in his garage with like a Gold's Gym bench and, you know, some plates we've scrounged up, and like a used beat up squat rack and like some like multi-training machines, the Smith machine and a push down and all this, and like that's all we had. And we're like, all right, we're gonna lift.
Yep.
But no, it was awesome. It was a great time. And I mean, I just loved doing it, loved training. So I was like, okay, so now how am I going to go from here to where I am now to, and at the time, I hadn't really even given bodybuilding a thought because I mean, I was 150 pounds. Like, what am I going to do on stage? But, like whenever I got started in powerlifting, it was when I transitioned from, just training. So I was like, okay, well, I need to get bigger, I need to get stronger. And I started training his gym. He was like, well, why don't you try powerlifting? I was like, all right, we'll give it a go. And that was fun. But then once I got into college and, my body started maturing a little bit more, I started seeing myself pack on all this muscle. And I was like, okay, well, I want to be a bodybuilder. Yeah. And that's when I started really diving into my diet and my training and my sleep and everything and trying to nail it as well as I could. But I mean, the transition was, it's like a switch just flips in your mind.
Okay.
Like you go from okay, well, I like doing this, it's cool, but I don't want to make it my life, to okay, now I've seen all this progress. I'm starting to see where I could go, and I'm seeing all these other people do these great things. Well, I want to be great too. So how am I going to get there? Yeah. And, one thing I recommend to everybody is to get a coach. Yeah. Because it will speed up your progress light years, and it's a good learning experience. Because, YouTube's great, and, you can read stuff online all you want, but, I mean, you're paying a monthly fee, which, that's standard nowadays. But it's well worth the money because now you have 24-hour access to this whole avenue of knowledge that you didn't know existed. Like, anytime I need something, I can just text Jaden, ask him a question, he's going to get right back to me. He had all my meals laid out, all my training laid out for the whole week. It takes the guesswork out of it. Like, you look at your phone, you see your planner, you're like, all right, this is what I'm doing today. And you just do it. But then when you start seeing how things are done, you start asking questions, that's when you start educating yourself. And then you get a better understanding of, well, why am I doing this? Or where is this going to take me?
Yeah, I like what you described there about how it's a switch flipping. And I think that's not as well, or is not as heavily talked about, or not as well recognized in a lot of media today, because a lot of people are like, oh, just take it slow and add in one aspect at a time. And certainly at first, if you've never been in a gym, never dieted, never done anything like that, certainly you kind of want to play that game for a little bit. You want to get in the gym, you want to learn a little bit about how to move your body, how to lift some weights, things like that. But when you go from there to that lifestyle that you talk about, where it's every single aspect of your day is geared toward that, then you need more than just kind of a slow dip your toe into the water. You need to find something. If it's really that important to you and that big of a passion for you, and this could be for whatever it is you guys are chasing in life, whether it's bodybuilding or powerlifting or anything outside of that. When you realize that it's that big of a passion, you need to be able to have that flipping of a switch moment where you just decide, from here on out, everything's going to be dedicated toward this. If it's really that important to me, then this is what it's going to take to get there. And I think that's a crucial piece that people may not we may not always want to hear. That's not the advice we always want to hear, but it's the truth of the situation, because I imagine every other guy that you step on stage with will be at that level. So, or close to. So if you're not, then you're automatically going to be putting yourself below the potential you could have reached.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of people a lot of people in the space are don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Just focus on you, all this stuff. But it's a give and take with that, because at the end of the day, I can't control who shows up or how they look. But, before I do a show, I'll kind of go online, I'll scope out, who was there last year and what they look like. It's okay, so I at least have to beat this. Yeah. Obviously, I have to beat myself from last year. Yeah. But it kind of gives you another goal to work towards, gives you some motivation. Okay, well, this guy looks great, so I have to look even better. And how are you going to get there? You got to put the work in.
Work even harder. Yeah.
But I don't know where I was going with that.
No, you're good. I get what you're saying because, like, at the end of the day, you're there to compete against yourself. You're there to be the best version of yourself you can be. But if your goal is to get a pro card and, to win shows and things like that, you're going to have to beat other people too.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what your competition looks like, then you're kind of you're doing yourself a disservice, I would imagine.
Right. I mean, there's no telling who's going to show up.
Yeah.
But, like, you can get on NPC News Online. You can see, like, okay, so for the last 3 years, this has been the level of competition that's been there. So likely it's going to be at that level or higher this year. Every once in a while you show up to a show and it's like, okay, there's nobody here.
Yeah.
But, like, whenever Skylar, my fiance, she did her first show earlier this year, like, we were looking for shows for her to do. And she's like, oh, I want to do the DC Pro-Am. I was like, oh, all right. Well, talk to Jaden and we'll see. And she'd talked about that show for like 3 months. He kept telling her, like, you need to put on more size. Like, you need to keep going a little bit longer. Maybe you should pick a different show. But she was just locked in. She's like, no, I want to do this show. Yeah. He's like, okay, well, let's do it.
Yeah.
So she goes, she does it, and dude, the level of competition that was there was insane. Yeah. Like, we get there, and we're seeing all these girls step on stage, and we're backstage, and the pros are back there, because it was the bikini pros and the men's physique pros were there. And she's looking around, and I was like, don't look around. Like, all those are pros. Like, just look at me. Yeah. Don't stress yourself out. You're fine. Yeah. You don't want to start holding water right before you go out by spiking your cortisol. But no, it ended up being like one of the hardest shows on the East Coast this year for the bikini class.
Oh, wow.
Like, dude, these girls were massive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, she looked great, and she held her own on stage, and that's really all we could ask for. I mean, she wasn't going in expecting to win. She just she wanted to see where she was at.
Yeah, and I love that kind of mindset too. There's something to be said for that, because there's one thing about, like, picking a show, like, you think you can win and trying to chase that win, and if you're getting your pro card or whatever, but then to, like, the mindset it takes to, like, I'm not just going to pick any show. I'm going to pick, like, the hardest show I can.
Yeah.
And I think in that way it can be its own, like, motivation and drive, because you're surrounded by all these people who are clearly, like, in another league, but it shows you where you can get to. And I mean, I think the best way to ever grow and to get better and achieve is to make yourself, put yourself in a room where everybody else in there is at a different level than you are, because that by default is going to force you to rise up to meet their level.
Right.
And so I really respect that mindset a lot too. And I loved, kind of seeing her journey on Instagram as well, and how you guys were kind of chasing that. It wasn't exactly lined up, but you guys were kind of chasing that at the same time, your own respective competitions.
Yeah, like, I think her show ended up being 2 weeks after mine.
Yeah.
So it was really close timeline. Like, we're both, like, I'm 2 weeks out and she's 4 weeks out, and we're both absolutely in hell. We're laying there. Like, you can hear our bellies growling, and we're fighting all the time because we're hangry.
Yeah.
But having a companion that shares your goals and will support you is a huge benefit. Like, couldn't ask for anything better.
It's the biggest life hack.
Because whenever there are times that I thought about quitting, or I can't do this, like, look over at her and she's killing her plan. So, okay, well, that's motivation for me.
Yeah.
Like, I can't let her outdo me.
No, man, you're absolutely right. And that was a big thing I wanted to talk to you about as well, because that's not something that every bodybuilder has.
Right.
The fact that you guys are, chasing the same sport at the same time, and it gives you each a really keen insight into the challenge and the pain and the suffering that you're each going through at the same time. I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on the next level of an edge that gave both of you in your shows, just having that level of support and that level of understanding in your corner.
No, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Like, because the first show I did, we were together, but we weren't living together. So I didn't have that every day. And she wasn't into bodybuilding at the time either. So it was really just me. Like, I didn't really have a crazy support system. It was like, all right, it's me and Jaden, and we're going to do this. But going into this show, like having her around for this off season, like having her support through my training, and, you know, like we're eating the same meals, just different versions, obviously. You know, she's not going to eat 4,000 calories. But it was awesome. Like, you know, we're both, there's a lot of similarities in our lives I really didn't realize until prep started, because we both work in healthcare. We're both in nursing school right now. We're both doing a bodybuilding show. Like, we're both trying to get our pro cards eventually. Like, and there's a lot of challenges that we had to face together. Like, you know, I'm 2 weeks out. I feel like hell. I feel like The Walking Dead, pretty much. It's finals week, so I've got to take all my finals, and
You can't even think because your brain doesn't have enough glucose to work.
right,
off
like
of.
I'm barely functioning. I'm white as a ghost. My professor's looking at me before my test. She's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
just, you know, that point in the diet." But I mean, we passed. We got through our shows, and we both looked phenomenal.
Yeah.
But Jaden wasn't gonna be able to be at my show, which is fine. But having her there was awesome, because like she was there, take my check-ins, send them to Jaden. Like, she cooked all my meals for me throughout like the last 3 days of prep, which was great because I didn't feel like doing it. And, you know, she was there. Her mom was there for me, which was really cool. You know, she was taking pictures. And then I was able to be there for her show as well. And I got the coach's pass and went backstage with her, because it's her first show. She doesn't know what to expect. But it was really helpful, because I feel like I was able to make a big difference on her and be able to keep her confident when she went out there, and not be, you know, crapping her pants, because she just saw this pros go on stage. And it's like, all right, now it's your turn.
Yeah.
So how are you going to follow that?
Yeah. And all you can do at that point is like be your absolute best. Like, you're not going to make a last minute change that all of a sudden puts you in front of all the pros necessarily.
Exactly.
On that stage. And I imagine, like, you knowing her better than anybody else, like, that had to be invaluable for her, just to help keep her mind straight, help her go out and put her very, very best on stage. And especially since, like, you know the sport so well, you guys can support each other in that aspect as well. It's not like you don't, you know, if you didn't understand bodybuilding at all, or what she was trying to do, it'd be much harder to kind of coach her through that and help her through that and give her that support. You know, even if you could be there emotionally, it'd be hard to give a lot of the tips and specific advice. Whereas with you having that knowledge, you know, you're able to like walk her through each of those steps, and you know what it's like to be in her shoes, you know, and you know what it's like to step out on stage, and when you're, you know, that level of hungry, or you're not feeling good, or you're freaking out mentally, or whatever it is, you know exactly what it's like to be there. So you know her that well, and you know exactly what it's like to be in that position yourself. So the asset that brings is just, it's huge. It's next level.
Right, like being able to be there for her made a huge difference, because especially in her class, it's a very competitive class. Like, a lot of people, if they don't know bodybuilding extremely well, they're looking at a bikini lineup and they're like, all these girls look the same, because it's so competitive. Like, there's just minute details that separate first place from like sixth.
Really?
Yeah, so a lot of it goes, like a lot of your placing, if you're that close with someone, you have to be in the right mindset. You have to have the confidence about you and have like some swagger, because everything that you do on stage, from the time you step your foot on stage and you walk on stage, is judged. So if you stumble during your routine, or like if she's doing her walk to the back of the stage and, you know, her heel collapses and she falls or she stumbles, like she's gonna get marked down for that.
Holy, I didn't know that.
Whoa.
And they don't get to just walk out barefoot like you guys do.
Yeah, they're in heels.
I cannot imagine trying to walk on those things.
Yeah, so like if you're really close and like, okay, well, I mean, all these girls look phenomenal. Like how are we going to pick a winner? It just comes down to minute details, like who's hitting their poses better, who's executing their walk the best, who has a better flair to them.
Wow. So it's not even, the differences aren't even so much in like, in like you see in male bodybuilding where, size and cuts and different things like that can make a big difference. It's
right, which that's a big aspect too. That's the main portion of it. But when you get to the point where, okay, there's not much of a difference from first to fifth, how are you going to pick a winner out of this lineup? Then it gets into the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
And you can't, this is another thing one of the judges told me after my show, that I can't always put 100% into a placing, because at the end of the day, it is a subjective sport. So, like, I might win one show, do another show a week later, bring the exact same look, and place fourth.
Yeah. Yeah, and that can all change just from the lineup, differences in how you may look that day. They can change from everything to, like you talked about, some hormonal shifts that can, affect how water's in your body. So many different aspects can go into that. Do you have to find like other reward mechanisms in those moments as well? Like you talked about how you've got to find other reward mechanisms in those moments where you're so hungry you can't even sleep. I'd imagine you got to do the same kind of thing when you're on stage and you feel like you brought a phenomenal look, but maybe you place fourth when you were hoping for first.
Absolutely. You can't put all your stock in your placing, because if you do that, you're setting yourself up for disappointment, because bodybuilding is a subjective sport. Like, yeah, you have criteria, but one judge might prefer someone else's look over yours, and it just goes off of what they think. So, like, you have size, shape, structure, like, how lean you are, everything. But if you're close with somebody, like, you can flip a coin and pick a winner. So it just depends on what physique that judge likes the best on that day. So then it really, you really do have to find another reward mechanism, like you were talking about. Like, if you felt that you brought your best and that you looked phenomenal and you couldn't have done anything differently, then that's a win.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, that's a huge aspect to so many passions that anybody could chase at this level. Because you got to be able to, like, I imagine the feeling you get, because we talked about the pain and the suffering, and the discipline is so high for so long, and the patience required is so high just to step on stage. I imagine that moment when you're on stage, you see the lights, and like, like how much improvement you made, how much work you put in. Can you try your best to describe that feeling, that moment of being on stage? I know there's probably not words that can do it justice, but how would you describe that?
So, if you ever played sports, I'd compare it to like when you're in like you're coming out of the locker room around the field, and everybody's like cheering for you, and like, you got the big lights in the field, and like you hear like the band playing. It's a feeling similar to that, but in ways it's more rewarding, because it's all you. Like, it's nobody else. It's just you. Like, when you come out on stage for your routine, you're the only person out there. Everyone in the crowd is watching you. The lights are shining on you. Like, it's your time on that stage, and you have to make the most of it. Yeah. You only have a minute. Yeah. So you have to showcase yourself exactly how you want to be seen in that minute and make the biggest impact that you can.
Yeah. Yeah, and we talk a lot about building, because one thing a lot of people struggle with today is building confidence. There's a lot of people who struggle heavily with that, and we've both gone through phases of our lives where we struggled heavily with that. We talk a lot about building confidence through building competence, like stacking up, proof of exactly who you are and what you've done in your life, and like the pictures and the videos you have and the memories you have of stepping on stage with that level of physique is something you'll carry with you for the rest of your life.
Right.
And you'll know that, like, I did that. I created that. I built that. Yeah, you had a massive support system with Skylar and with Jaden, I'm sure many other people in your life. But at the end of the day, like you talked about, it's an individual sport. You put in that work. You did the actions to build that physique.
Right.
And I imagine does that bring a pretty massive level of confidence going forward into other aspects of life?
Absolutely. Like, before I really started competing, I was not very confident in myself at all. But eventually, like, through that mindset of just wanting to improve myself, wanting to better myself, like, you start to build confidence. Like, even like when you're powerlifting, right? Like when you're first starting off, like, you know, you're not even benching a plate. You're like, okay, you're not going to be confident about that. But as you're moving up and like you're slapping 2 plates on each side, you're like, okay, you know, now I'm doing something, right? Like you're starting to build some confidence, starting to get the train rolling. Yeah. So, and that can carry it into other parts of your life too. Like if you don't have any confidence at all, but you start to build some confidence in one aspect of your life, like in the gym, then you're going to start to get more confident everywhere else, because you're going to see your body changing. You're going to see that you are able to accomplish more than what you thought you were capable of. So that's going to carry over.
Yeah. And you know, like, no matter how hard things get with, like, because I'm sure there's times with school where you're like staring at a textbook or doing whatever online, you're like, man, I just don't want to be doing this anymore.
Right.
I'm sure, especially when you're 2 weeks out from a show.
Oh,
sure
dude, it was horrible.
Yeah. But you know, like, hey man, I've been here before. I've gotten through this. I've gotten through harder things before, and I can do this now. I think that's such a huge piece. If you can build, David Goggins would call them the cookies in the cookie jar. Like if you can build that proof, like he's talking about, dude, that dude's crazy, but I love him. But he'll talk about how, like, man, I'll just be running and it's like 100 miles in and I've got 2 broken feet. But he's like, I remember how I did this thing back in SEAL training. And he's like, you know, that'll push me forward. That'll keep me going because of how badass that was.
All right, you gotta carry the boats.
Yeah, exactly.
and the logs.
Yeah. So I love that kind of mindset, and I think it's crucial for no matter what it is your passion is, no matter what you're chasing, that pain and suffering and hardship that you're going through right now, because if you're pursuing anything at a high enough level, you're going to have that. I don't care what it is. You've got to almost build almost like a love for that pain and suffering and that hardship, because you know that it's going to get you to where you want to be, but more than that, it's going to serve you for the rest of your life, because just like being on a bodybuilding stage, it's all subjective. Pain is all subjective. Pain is all relative. Like, we've all only gone through the hardest thing we've ever gone through. Right. So if you're pushing yourself to a new limit right now and it feels uncomfortable and it feels hard and it feels like something you want to give up on and you don't know if you can do, you just got to keep pushing, because this is building a new threshold for not just the pain you can withstand, but what you're capable of achieving, the limit you're able to push yourself to. And that's why we like to say limitations do not exist, because you decide what those limitations are. Right. You know, I'm sure your next show is going to be even harder than this show was. To prep for it. And you're going to be finding new limitations, pushing past current limitations and creating new thresholds for yourself in that moment. And you're going to be able to do that because of what you know you've done from this past show you did. And when you can get yourself into a cycle, and like you talk about, build that into a lifestyle for yourself, you're constantly pushing past limitations, finding new thresholds of potential, then when you compound that over decades, you're going to go to some pretty crazy places in life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just circling back a little bit, talking about that mindset, and like a lot of people, it's very easy to pick out the negative. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, it's easy to think about how much this hurts, or how I don't want to study right now, or how I could go to the gym, but I'd rather sit there and watch TV, or like whatever. Like, you don't want to do the hard things. That's when you have to find a reward mechanism and think about the positive. Like, okay, so I'm studying for this test right now. I really don't want to, but eventually, once I graduate, I'm going to make a career for myself, and that's going to serve you for the rest of your life, like you said. So,
yeah. And you're in nursing school right now, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm sure it's had to be helpful, like some of the things you learn in nursing school about anatomy, physiology, biochemistry. Has some of that carried over to your bodybuilding as well?
Oh, absolutely. Like now I can read my own lab values. So
that is a very helpful skill.
Invaluable.
Yeah,
And
I never realized how helpful reading labs would be for me in my own life, and I do it way more outside of my job than I ever do inside of my job.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a cool thing. Austin, I know you've recently been not necessarily on like a bodybuilding journey, but like on a hypertrophy journey here recently yourself. What's that been like? Because you made some pretty remarkable changes in your own physique over the last 6 months or so since coming out, particularly from being in Scotland and coming out of that last battle with cancer. What's that kind of been like, incorporating that into your life? And I've seen you kind of build a similar lifestyle in your own life. What's that process been like, kind of building that in real time?
The build has been extremely, I would say, rewarding in itself. So over the past 3 years, coming in and out of treatment, it's been very difficult to get anything that's consistent. Because I would go in, I would find out that I relapsed, and that would send me through treatment for 4 to 6 months. And I know that there are people out there that find themselves capable of training to any extent during treatment. I'm not one of those people. I would be able to walk. I would be able to get into the gym, once in a blue moon. But that was not me, and I wasn't going to force myself to do that. Nor was I in the position, especially when you get into further relapses and more intense regimens, that it's just I'm not. That's kind of on the back burner. And so, doing powerlifting, I competed 3 times, and for those 3 competitions, the powerlifting journey was good. It was fun. I really enjoyed the explosiveness, but I wasn't finding the diet to being a whole lot of fun. Being on a caloric surplus to maybe hopping down to maintenance, but never a calorie deficit, never a deficit. And then secondly, physically, I was not looking in any means the way that I wanted to look. And the diet thing, I've always struggled to eat well until I met Matt back in 2020, 2021. And for the looking good, I've never had a physique that I've been ever comfortable with, especially back in my older days, or younger days, I suppose, a long time ago. It was made very known that I didn't look good as well in school and everything, and so I definitely kept to myself, wore baggy shirts, that kind of stuff, Scottish in my jeans, and so all my fat was just kind of kept in the middle section.
Right.
And so I've struggled, and I still struggle to this day. But I would say in the summer of last year, I decided that for recovery from so I did a CAR T-cell therapy down in Houston in the beginning of 2024, and coming off of that, it was an immunosuppressant regimen that I went through in terms of chemo. So it was just 3 straight days of chemo, and coming off of that, I was just like, and talking with Matt, I was like, powerlifting, I'm done. I need my body to recover. And the last thing I want to do is really stress out the central nervous system and especially my immune system, because that, it's been through enough at this moment.
Right.
And so the summer came along, and I'm like, let's do some hypertrophy. I wanted to get into a different training regimen anyways.
Yeah.
And I started following Mike Israetel, Jared Feather, to try to get the coaching side from Mike, but then to see an actual well-trained athlete as well, and then started going beyond that. But I was last summer was my YouTube journey, That's when I started, and it was so much fun, getting to just learn an entirely new training regime, but secondly, it was just, I felt like I was in much more control, in where I wanted to go in terms of my goals. Because with powerlifting, it was just like powerlifting was motivated by, oh, I lifted heavy with my friends back in the day, and I just want to continue to do that. But I was going nowhere. I was very aimless. But with hypertrophy, I was just like, well, at least I have a goal here of, I'm not going to compete, but I want to look fantastic. Right. And this is going to get me there. I know it will. And ever since then, I unfortunately, I relapsed again last September, and then I went in for an autologous bone marrow transplant. And that's 6 days in a row chemo, a deadly dose of chemo. And so it took a lot of time to come and recover from that. That started the beginning of December this past year. And so it was, I mean, January, February, I was just trying to recover from that. I mean, even into April and May, I was still technically recovering from it. But in March, I took a month off to go to Scotland, and I just said, collected myself mentally, obviously, but also right. Physically. I was able to really set some goals, and find myself making a physique in mind actually come to mind and come to fruition, and be like, okay, I think I can do this. I want to do this. And I already started in the hypertrophy portion, and I knew that going along with it, I found so much enjoyment with that training style. And ever since March, it stumbled here over the summer just with a lot of traveling for work, but training 5 to 6 days a week, watching my diet, and being very disciplined within, especially the diet portion. I've always been somewhat disciplined, but again, it was just, I was so used to a caloric surplus that now going into the deficits, taking the occasional week to kind of refeed, just because, again, I'm not competing, I'm just making sure that I'm recovering well. Right. Because that's always been the biggest thing. And that's, again, another aspect that I never had with powerlifting. I was not listening to my body at all. So I had the change in the diet. I had the change in the training. But then I also had the change in just being so much more aware of what my body was saying. And those are the three biggest things that I've been able to take away from training hypertrophy instead. Right. Is and ultimately I was coming out of the bone marrow transplant, so end of December, beginning of January, I was at 212, and that was not a healthy 212 at all. I don't know what my body fat percentage was back then, but I would assume it was like low to mid 30s. And I've been able to cut down to 184 is where I'm at right now. I'm feeling fantastic, but I'm looking so much better than what it was before. And so it's definitely it's awesome on a personal level for me, going to Monsters and just being surrounded so much by strength and just powerlifting and just all of this explosiveness and this ferocity and this a semi-controlled violence, that to see a bodybuilder really making a name of themselves and looking fantastic like you do, coming from Monsters as well. It's so cool to see that. So yeah, it's really been an incredible journey. It has. I'm so happy to be doing it. I'm happy that in 3 weeks' time, the person sitting beside me is going to start hypertrophy as well with me. So it's awesome. I can't wait, because it's had such a positive impact on my life. Not only for vanity's sake, because I definitely suffer from that, and I want to do the best that I can with it and turn it into something positive, but also just in general, it has impacted just my life in such a positive, driving manner. And it's been awesome. Yeah, it really has.
Well, and I think you bring up vanity as well, and vanity gets a bad rap, and it certainly can be taken to an extreme. It can be a bad thing. But I think that's something we all need to have a little bit. And I think it's okay to want to look good. You know, would you agree with that, especially from a bodybuilding perspective?
100%. I mean, you have to have goals for yourself, and like if looking good is one of your goals, that's okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think about vanity, think about people that are very arrogant. There's a difference in being arrogant and just being confident in yourself, and wanting to look a certain way or wanting to feel better.
Because that's got to be, especially where you came from, because you said you were a pretty tiny guy, especially in high school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's got to be a big difference. Like that's got to be a huge confidence boost now to walk around. You said you're 221?
Yep.
221 right now. And you're freaking jacked and you still have abs. And,
I appreciate it.
That's got to be, what's that confidence shift got to be like going from where you were in high school to where you are now?
I've had a few different physiques in my life.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, I was a really fat kid.
Really?
I was extremely obese.
Just like little kid?
Really up until 9th grade.
Okay.
Like even like 8th grade, like everybody's making fun of me, like calling me fat, like throwing stuff at me. Like it was not a good time. But then like once I got into high school, I started eating better, stopped drinking so much pop and eating so much ice cream. Like definitely not a diet to the degree I have now, but just cutting out some of the stuff that was really just keeping me really fat. And then I got really skinny throughout high school, and then going to where I'm at now is definitely a big change. Like it still feels weird.
Really?
Like, like you're walking around and people look at you and they're like, like, hey, big guy, what's up? And you're like, you talking to somebody over there? But yeah, it's definitely different, but it's a big confidence boost for sure.
I'd imagine. And one thing I always love to think about too is just like reflecting back on who you used to be. I'm sure that kid going into 9th grade who was overweight, and I'm sure that kid who was, on the football field feeling really skinny, if either of those kids could have seen a picture of what you look like now, seeing those pictures on stage and like knowing what they would someday look like, I'm sure they would have just been like freaking out, like over the moon excited.
It is pretty crazy to think about. And I've thought about that before. Like whenever I first started training for bodybuilding, I wasn't even like thinking about, okay, well, I'm going to go pro one day. It was like, I just want to look good enough to get on stage and not make a complete fool of myself and actually be competitive. And then, now obviously as the years have went on, like your goals change. Like you meet one goal, well, now you're going to set a different goal. You're not just going to stay content with where you're at, because then you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think it's really important to kind of create a stepwise fashion for it like that. Certainly there's some people out there I've met that are just like, from day one, Wade in powerlifting has been this way. He's like, since the day I've known him, he's like, he was like 19, 20 back then. He's like, I'm going to set an all-time world record. He's like, I don't care what it takes. I don't care how long it takes. He's like, I'm going to do it. Some people do that. But, there's, I think for a lot of people, and I think even if that is your goal, like I'm going to set an all-time world record one day, or I'm going to win the Olympia someday, or whatever it is, even if you've got these big grand goals that are like lifetime career goals, you've got to create stepwise goals within that. Like first you got to, like you said, I got to step on stage. I got to get good enough to step on stage, because that's a massive undertaking in and of itself.
Right.
Like how many people in the world have ever been able to diet down or get lean enough to be able to even step on stage, or even just have the confidence to do that? Because I imagine it's got to take a certain degree of confidence to put that out there as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what you're talking about with setting smaller goals, it's very beneficial, because you have this really big goal that you're looking up for, and you're like, okay, well, how am I going to get there? And, a lot of what you said about patience, it's like you can be as patient as you want, but eventually, if you're not setting smaller goals for yourself and getting some reward from achieving these smaller goals, you're still going to feel like you're so far away. And a lot of people give up because they still feel like they're so far away from this big goal they're shooting for. They also don't take time to realize how far they've come.
Yeah. And that's why I always like that perspective of reflecting back on like the person you were 10 years ago could have seen where you are now, they wouldn't believe it. You know,
Right.
I think we've got to remind ourselves of that and pull confidence from that and pull drive going forward from that. Because if the person you were 10 years ago wouldn't have believed where you are now, you can do the same thing 10 years from now. Mm-hmm. It makes it our job today to make sure the person we are, that we today wouldn't believe the person we are 10 years from now. You know, I think that's a huge driving factor for me, is like, I've got to put in this work today to make sure that I can't believe the person I am 10 years from now. To be able to put that, we call it the unruly faith in your own potential. That's a big thing that drives us day to day. And to be able to have that, know where you're going to go and the little micro goals you're going to have to get there along the way. Because, you know, 2 years or 3 years ago, your goal was just to step on stage. I'm sure that was an amazing feeling in and of itself, even though it sounds like you got some pretty brutal feedback from the judges.
Right.
Yeah. But you got there. You got to step on stage, and you have to step on stage the first time to be able to step on stage the next time and the next time until you get your pro card. And you've got to be able to do that, step on that stage to get your pro card to be able to win a pro show someday. You know, so it's just part of the process you've got to get through. But what's wild about it is, you know, you look back and you think, man, like, that felt so good back then, even though now you can look at it and say, oh, I didn't look nearly as good that first show.
Right.
But now, you know, you had to put in that work to get to where you are now. And so the goal then today becomes putting in that work to get to where you can know you can be for the next show, and kind of creating that vision of your mind of what that physique's gonna look like going forward to there. But for somebody who maybe like Austin, he's gotten on and he's made some pretty awesome changes in his physique. He's got bigger goals for going forward. Say and I'm not putting anything in your head necessarily, even though I am. Say he decided, with no amount of time limit, maybe it's 2 years from now, that eventually he wanted to step on stage. Or for anybody listening who's thinking about, man, I've really loved lifting weights, I'm really enjoying this, but I'm kind of in a routine now and I want to take it to the next level. What are the 3 most important things that person has to do to go from, you know, big physique changes, starting to look a lot better, feel a lot better, perform a lot better, to go from that place to ready to step on stage?
Now you're talking like when you're first starting to
Yeah,
want to
like
step on stage.
when you were going, like you got with Jaden in 2021, to in 2022 you're stepping on stage. Like
Okay.
the transition from, I'm enjoying this, I'm making big changes, I've done a lot of good progress, but now I think I might want to step on stage in some time in the future. Maybe it's
Right.
2 years from now. What are like the three biggest things you could do as an athlete to be able to set yourself up for success?
I'd say the first thing is, you know, to develop a plan that not only that you're comfortable with and that feels good, but that, you know, you're going to be able to stick with it, right? Because you have to be consistent. So whenever you're like, okay, well, I want to step on stage, you have to be consistent with your training and your nutrition and your posing. So if you're thinking about wanting to get on stage, not only your training and your nutrition, you have to drill your posing. You have to do it a lot. Because whenever I was first starting, I didn't know anything about posing. And looking back, it was brutal when I first started. But, you know, you don't want to put in all this work to, like, you know, well, you look great, but you can't showcase how great your physique is because you can't pose it right. Like, you know, you might have a very wide back, for example, but if you're hitting your back toe bicep and you're pinching your scapulas together, you're not showing how much width you actually have because you're pinching your back. Oh. You got to spread your lats. Yeah. And that's just one example. But if you're looking to get into bodybuilding, obviously you have to develop a plan that you can stick with and that you're going to be able to continue on with for the next year or two or however long, and just make small critiques to it as you go. So you have to be consistent with that, and nail your training, nail your diet, and then start working on your posing like a year or two in advance. Like, start working on your posing as soon as you think you might be interested in doing a show. Because I didn't start really working on my posing hard until I was in prep 16 weeks out for my first show, and I was like, ugh, this is bad. I mean, by the time I got on stage, like, it got a lot better, but it still sucked compared to now.
Yeah, that's something I hadn't even thought of. And I guess I've heard some more people talk about it more and more, but I imagine it's got to take a whole process in learning how to pose. Not even, like, it's not like you just go up there and flex your muscles on stage. Like, there's a whole art and science behind it.
Yeah, it's that's where a lot of having a coach will help you, especially when you're starting. I mean, yeah, everybody knows what a front double bicep looks like, but they're not thinking about how to plant their feet into the ground, or how, like, a lot of people will pose and they'll only pose their upper body. Okay. But how do you get your legs to pop too? Because it's not only the front double bicep they're looking at your legs, they're looking at, your abs, your chest, everything. Like, everything is always on display, so you want to show it the best you can. So getting a coach, and a lot of people have a couple different coaches. Like, some people have 3 different coaches. Some people have one person that does their training, one person that does their diet, and then another person that does their posing, which for someone that is on a budget, like I am right now being in nursing school, that's not happening. But if you can find a coach that you trust and that happens to know a lot about posing, as well as training and nutrition, then that would be a really good step in the right direction.
Yeah, I'd imagine that, and that was something like I hadn't even considered, so I'm glad you brought that up. In terms of the lifestyle things, I think I really loved how you said, like, you have to build this as a lifestyle. Like, that's the only way you're gonna be as consistent, as disciplined in every aspect that bodybuilding requires. How do you kind of construct that? And we've talked about, like, nutrition, and we've talked about training, and that's great in, like, a vacuum situation where, say, in a perfect world, you could wake up and do nothing but bodybuilding. Like,
right.
You could just eat and just train and just sleep. Like, in a perfect world of a vacuum, that'd be great. But then you've got other things in life. Like, you've got family, you've got significant others, you've got friends, you've got school, you've got jobs and careers. How do you go about navigating and maintaining that lifestyle of bodybuilding with the other life requirements that you have?
Yeah, it's definitely not always perfect. Like, sometimes you do have to make a sacrifice. Mm-hmm. Like, not everyone's going to understand this new lifestyle that you're trying to live. A lot of people won't understand it at all. Some people try, but they're not ever going to understand it the way that you do, or like how you really want your life to be, living this lifestyle. So there are a lot of times where there are certain people in your life that you thought you were really close with. Well, now you're trying to better yourself and live this new lifestyle, and they're not supporting you. So you kind of just phase them out. Mm-hmm. Like, a lot of people, like, you'll be on prep and they'll be like, oh, come out to the bar with us. Like, well, I mean, I can come out, but I'm eating out of a Tupperware container. Mm-hmm. And I'm not drinking anything. Yeah. I'm like, well, why not? Like, you can't just take one day off. It's like, no, because then that messes up my entire trajectory. But I'm sorry, what was your question again?
It was kind of talking about the lifestyle piece, and I think you really have already hit the nail on the head and given us an answer for that. It's like, you got to make sacrifices, but I think really what you alluded to there is it actually exposes maybe a lot of the areas of your life you just need to make changes in,
Right.
in regards especially to some of the relationships and people you have in your life. Like if somebody who is really a true friend of yours or a true supporter of yours or somebody who's going to back you up, if they're a true supporter of you, they're going to be there for you kind of no matter what pursuit or what path or what plan you need to make for life or what lifestyle you need to incorporate, whether they understand it or not. Like if somebody really supports you, they may be able to, they should be able to say like, I don't understand it. Like, I don't know why you would want to do this, but I know that it means a lot to them. I know it's important. So I'm going to be here to support them however he needs me to. And you know, if somebody can't get there, like if you find out you do have a lot of friends that are just like trying to pull you away from or saying like, come on man, it's just one meal. Like you can cheat on that, or you can go out and party with us tonight. It's no big deal. You know, if you've got people who are constantly like dogging you for that and saying that like your goals or your process doesn't matter, maybe it's time to reanalyze, you know, the people you have in your life.
Adios.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's did you have to, obviously you don't need to give any names or anything, but like did you have people you found along the way you had to kind of just maybe not even fully cut out of your life, but just distance yourself from because they just didn't fit the lifestyle you needed?
Yeah, very much so. Like whenever I was first starting, especially my first prep, you know, I had a lot of friends and they'd be like, "Oh, why don't you come out and do this?" Like, well, I mean, I'll come out, but I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna be able to eat what everybody else is eating. Like, I'm eating out of a Tupperware container, and I'm not drinking anything other than my 6 liters of water. And you know, you find people that might not fully understand, and they think it's weird or whatever, but they just accept you. And they're like, okay, yeah, come out with us, you know, it'll be a good time. Then you go and hang out, and it's cool. But then I feel like the majority of people, you start to realize, okay, well, at least for this period of time, I'm not going to be able to go out with them, because you go out and they're constantly pressuring you. They're like, hey, why don't you just eat off the menu instead of out of your meal, or why don't you just have one drink, and then that turns into however many after that. But yeah, there are sometimes you have to distance yourself from people, and I've had to do that with quite a few people. But then I've also picked up a lot of new people along the way that fully support me in my goals.
Yeah, and that is a huge aspect to the lifestyle, and this is true in bodybuilding or regardless of any goals you guys are chasing out there. By creating this lifestyle and kind of committing yourself to this lifestyle first, you'll almost by default, if you're fully committed to that lifestyle, you'll kind of by default make those changes over time.
Right.
And if this is really like the number one, you know, thing, or like a big enough priority and passion in your life right now, then you'll make those changes, and it'll create positive change in your life. You know, because you'll find true people who truly support your mission and vision in life, regardless of whether they even understand it or not. You know, certainly some will, others may not, and that's okay as long as they're there to support you in that way. You know, so that's an incredibly positive change, and I know for both Austin and I, you know, the change that we made when we went from some of the darkest times and darkest places in our life to then getting into the gym and you know, things like finding monsters and the people that kind of shifted in our lives from that standpoint still to this day some of the most positive aspects of that change, you know, along with the internal transformation and some of the external transformations in regards to strength and confidence and whatever else it might be. Just the people you build around you are one of the biggest key aspects to that, because they're gonna, rather than try to tear you down, they're going to help hold you accountable to those goals. They're going to help hold you accountable to that mission. And not only that, they're going to provide drive and motivation in their own right. Like I'm sure now having, you know, Skylar in your life on her own physique and bodybuilding path with what she's chasing in bikini competition, and having Jaden as your coach, you know, like those have to be, you know, massive drives and motivation in your own life to, hey, I need to show up and be even better for myself so I can be better for them as well.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you were saying about finding people that will hold you accountable, and, you know, finding new people that fit into your new lifestyle. Once you start getting into the space, like, yeah, you might lose a few people, or you might not be as close with someone as you once were, because you've got your 2 to 3 hours that, like, you're going to the gym and that's it. Like, it's one of your non-negotiables. And some people just can't understand that, and they might not want to talk to you as much or hang out as much, and that's okay. But then you get in the gym or wherever you're going, and you start getting around more like-minded people, and you start making new friends, and you start finding people that want to share the same goals as you or something similar, and they want to support your journey.
Yeah. And I've always said too, and our content has already started. This shift is going to go even more so over the next several months and probably years. But we've really gotten down to this idea of priorities, looking at what are the exact top priorities you have for your life. And I don't like putting a specific number on it, like you need 3 priorities, you need 4 priorities, or you need 5. I just like, what are your top priorities? I think we can all only juggle so many at once. I think ideally less than 5 is good. For me, I've got 4 the most key essential priorities for me. And then once you establish exactly what those priorities are, and you can create confidence around those priorities to where you don't feel guilty for what those priorities are, because there's going to be a lot of people who don't understand what you're chasing, like you say, and they're going to make you feel guilty of, like, oh, that shouldn't be as high of a priority. Like, going out and having fun and building relationships with your friend is more important, so you shouldn't be that strict with your diet. You know, you're going to have people that try to tell you that, and you're like, no, I'm not, like these are my priorities. This is what is most important to me, and I'm going to hold fast to this. And I want people in my life who are going to understand this and support it. So create those priorities. That's the first step. But then around that, constructing your life to fit those priorities in order of importance is the next biggest step. Because what I realized, I had gotten to a point in my 4 priorities are, number 1 is my own health and well-being, from mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional perspective. Second is my family, Lauren, my wife, Lily, our daughter, and the people outside of just my nuclear family who are most important to me, like Austin and other friends we have from Monsters or wherever else. Third is our business and our mission and vision with Impossible Performance. Fourth is my own, then fourth priority is my own personal athletic goals and achievements, i.e. right now what it has been is powerlifting. And I got to a spot where I realized I was just always in a space with my life where I felt like I was putting time and energy and effort and resources into things that just did not feel as important to me. And that's really what kicked off a lot of this journey. And I realized I'm paying for a coach right now every month, quite a lot of money, for what has now become my 4th priority. But I'm not paying for a coach in any other priority above that.
Right.
Not only that, I'm putting about 15 to 20 hours a week into my 4th priority. And what really kicked this off for me was having our daughter, because when you have a child, it is the single greatest thing that will ever happen to you in, like, ways that I think you can't even understand until you get there. I certainly couldn't understand until I got there. That's a whole a separate discussion, but it also requires massive restructuring of your life, because now you have this this whole priority that you want to put everything you have into, and you know, babies by default require that. You know,
Right.
They require a lot of time and focus, energy, and attention. And not that you shouldn't abandon the rest of your passions and priorities, but before I could, like, force it all to work because I could just put so much time into those things. Then after having Lily, you know, I realized, like, I'm putting so much time into things that just aren't as important to me right now. And I realized I was putting a very skewed amount of my time and energy and focus and financial resources into my 4th priority. And it was pulling a lot of pulling a lot of time and energy and resource from my top 3 priorities. So I was living a very disordered life, and it created a lot of like unhappiness and just feelings like I'm not going anywhere in the directions I want to be going in life. And so when I made that realization, I was like, you know what, I'm going to have to start switching things around. And so for me, I made this realization kind of over the past 6 to 9 months. And it was about 3 to 6 months ago, I really realized like, oh, I'm going to make a big shift in my life. And I did want to, because I was in a good spot to be able to come and take this 500-pound squat. And that was something I was like, you know what, before I really kind of shift that phase of my life, I want to be able to make this happen, because this is something that is actually very important to me and something I want to be able to achieve in my life before I go forward. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to take this one last comp, really put everything into it and see what I can make happen on the platform. And then, you know, whatever happens, I'll know that I put the highest level of work I could in, and I'll feel good, you know, moving into the next phase. But all that to say, when you make those priorities, I think it doesn't matter what those priorities are, but you have to be able to put yourself as one of those, if not the top, one of those top 2 priorities. And I think my argument would be you need to make yourself the top priority. And that sounds shocking to a lot of people because it sounds arrogant or cocky or selfish or whatever else. But what I've learned is when I make myself right, when I'm living my life in a way that I feel really good about myself and I feel like I'm as high as I can be in those 4 domains of performance, the mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual, that I'm going to be a 10x better husband to my wife. I'm going to be a 10x better father to my daughter. And so it's worth me making sure I have myself right and have myself at the highest capacity I can be, because then I'm going to bring my best self by far to the rest of those priorities. And if I were constantly sacrificing my health or my emotional well-being or whatever it may be, then I'm not going to be a very good husband. I'm not going to be a very good father. I'm not going to be a very good entrepreneur. I'm definitely not going to be a very good athlete to where I could be. So that was kind of a long aside, but I bring it back to where you've got to be able to take the step of making yourself a top priority, because not only will that set you up to chase your own personal mission and vision at the highest level you can, but it's going to allow you to show up for those people who are actually true supporters in your life and true meaningful relationships at your life at a much higher level. And so for you in doing that, you know, kind of committing yourself to this lifestyle in bodybuilding and making that high of a priority in life, and to where you've got non-negotiables, like I'm not going to miss training, I'm not going to miss this meal, I'm not going to miss my water, I'm not going to go off plan. You're now able to be there at a much higher level for the people who you've found that are true meaningful supporters in your life.
Right, and I like what you said about you have your top goals and your top priorities and you can kind of organize them. But I do agree with you when you said you have to take care of yourself, and you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of anybody else. Because if you're not taking care of you, how are you going to take care of your daughter or take care of your wife or the rest of your family? Or, you know, if you don't have a wife or a daughter, like how are you going to be able to take care of like your close friends if something's not right with you? So I do like what you said about that quite a lot. And within your top priorities that you were talking about, you have to take care of yourself, and that could be like you have a hobby. Maybe it's not the gym. Maybe you like to fish or whatever, and you just feel better when you can go and you can enjoy your hobby. And maybe it's only like an hour or 2 hours, like, or a couple times a week, but it's something that you need to make time for because it's going to make you feel better about yourself and make you enjoy your life more. And you don't have to necessarily like have a certain time every day. Like, okay, I'm going to go every Saturday at 2 p.m. because what if something happens, or what if you have other plans? But like for me, like, my top hobby is obviously bodybuilding. Now, obviously, it's not a career, at least right now. Maybe it will be someday, but that's a long ways away. But it is something that I'm obviously very passionate about, but I don't have a certain time every day. Like, okay, I have to train at this time, or I have to go, like, or whatever. Because, like, I do have a job. Like, everybody does have a job. You gotta have money to support your lifestyle, have money to support your family. So your job's always, you can't miss your work. So you have to work. So maybe, like, one day, if I'm working and I have to train that day, so I work in healthcare, so typically, like, 3 days a week if you're working 12-hour shifts because they're full-time. So I have 2 rest days, so I always structure my 2 rest days to be on 2 of my work days. So I only have to train before or after work one day. So, yeah, I mean, sometimes, like, I work a really crappy shift and my training kind of takes a hit that day, but it's better than not doing it at all. And then, obviously, you have to put your family first. So, like, if Skylar wants to go out and do something, or, like, if I had a daughter and I was taking my daughter out to, like, to do whatever she wanted to do, that's obviously going to come first. But, I mean, the gym only takes up, like, 2 hours of my day. I can find 2 hours somewhere in the day to go and train.
Yeah. And that's where, like, and what we're going to dive into more here in the next several months and probably years is there are ways, like, you can, because lots of people, and I think this just comes down to some people just like to make a lot of excuses.
That's
there's
facts.
people out there. But you can create this priority structure and you can still, like, everything that's important to you, everything that's in those priorities, everything you're passionate about, you can make it all work. Like, there's a guy online, he gets a little extreme sometimes. I don't always agree with everything, but his name's Andy Elliott. And one of the things I love that he says, though, is you can have it all. Like, you don't have to choose one thing or the other. Like, you can basically construct your life in a way that you're still living out the things you are passionate about and still, be a good father, be a good husband, be good at your job, or whatever else it is that may be important to you. There's ways that you can construct your life around that. Like you alluded to with, well, yeah, you've got to train for 2 hours, but it doesn't necessarily have to happen at 1:00 p.m. on the dot every single day.
Right.
But I think people get trapped in feeling like, oh, that must be nice for you, but I can't do this because my job is this way. Well, it's like, you can change your job, and especially, like, for you in nursing, and I know being in school and nursing at the same time is very different, but once you get out of school, nursing is a great field because there is so many different areas of where you can be a nurse. Right. And if bodybuilding is a huge passion priority for you, but you don't really care about whether you work specifically in inpatient versus outpatient or wherever. This is just an example. I don't know your full story in this area, but you could go out and get a job being a nurse at a doctor's office where you work 8 hours Monday to Friday with a 1 hour lunch break, and you never work night shift. You're never working weekends. You're never working holidays. You're never on call, things like that. So you could go out and get a job like that to create a better schedule for your bodybuilding. Because if you were to go out and if you felt like the only job you had, and again, this is just an example, but like, right, if you boxed yourself in and said the only job I can get is an inpatient nurse where you're constantly working swing shift and 12-hour night shifts, 12-hour day shifts, and you may get called for a lot of overtime, you're going to be on your feet a lot, with very high stress levels, like, that's not going to be super conducive, or it's at least not going to maximize your potential in bodybuilding. Right. So it's being able to just step back and, okay, there may be some factors in life I don't have a lot of control over right now, but what are some big changes I can make that would allow me to to set up my life to where I can actually live out these priorities and these passions, these things that are much more important to me? Because I think a lot of times we have a lot more control and influence over those factors than we would allow ourselves to believe initially.
No, I 100% agree with that. And like you said, you can change your work.
Yeah.
Granted, it might take a lot of steps.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if there's a certain way that you want to live your life, you have to be willing to make those sacrifices and to put yourself through school or whatever to change your job, to be able to make yourself, to have a better life for yourself and something that you're going to be able to enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no right or wrong scenario for people, but I think the biggest thing we all need to realize is that we are the ones in control and of our own personal lives. And whatever we decide, we got to feel good about it. We got to feel like it's aligned with our passions and our interests, and most especially our priorities. Because the worst thing you can do is allow yourself to develop a mindset of, oh, I'm trapped in this job, so there's no way I can go work out. Well, are you really, though? Yeah, maybe it doesn't make sense for you right now. Maybe you have 4 kids and you have to earn a certain level of income to keep your family, healthy and functional and make sure you provide for everything they need. So maybe you can't just quit your job and go back to full-time schooling. Yeah, maybe you can't do that. But maybe you can take night classes, or you can just look at a different career or a different job that you actually qualify for. I think there's generally a lot more options out there than we may allow ourselves to realize, And Austin's been going through a process with this as well, and realizing that maybe the job he's working right now isn't the most sustainable for what his priorities are, and so looking at options. And you can always go out and look. You can always go and see what options are out there. There's always a way forward. But kind of what we talked about is, if you're not living life to what your priorities are, it's going to create a lot of disorder and chaos in your life. You're gonna find yourself pretty unhappy. At least that's been my experience and the experience of a lot of other people that I know. So I kind of bring all this up because you talked about lifestyle, and I think that piece is so important. You got to create the lifestyle you want to live first, and allow yourself to feel happy and confident with that. And it may change over time. There's nothing wrong with that, but you got to figure out what it is you want, what your priorities are, the lifestyle you want to live, and then kind of construct a lot of the other aspects of your life that aren't as important, that aren't priorities around that. And that's ultimately what I came to is, you talked about a coach and how important a coach is, and I agree 100% with you. If you're in a sport, or especially bodybuilding, and wanting to compete at a certain level, or even compete at all, a coach is going to be crucial for that process. But now what I've found is I was hiring a coach been paying a coach and hiring a coach for what is now, I realize, is the 4th priority on my list. And that would be like if you didn't have a coach for bodybuilding, but you were hiring a tutor that created this intense 20-hour plan just for nursing school or whatever, or for the fishing hobby,
Right.
If you hired a fishing coach, but you didn't have a bodybuilding coach, then those do not line up in your life with how important bodybuilding is for you, And that's kind of where I got to. And so what I realized going forward is I'm actually at a point right now where I'm not I'm probably still gonna compete here and there for fun in powerlifting, just because I love the fun of it, and I know enough to be able to get myself healthy enough to at least step on a platform if I want to someday, and go out and have fun and bring my highest level of strength. But I'm just not going to have a coach going forward, at least not in powerlifting or really in any other physical performance aspect. Because when I do, I find myself in these places of being married to this program and having to put in these 2 or 3 hour training sessions that are just not where I want to invest my time and resources right now. So, and when I have those, or when I am married to those programs, I always find myself getting a little just frustrated with man, I've got to do this stuff that is just not the thing I'm most passionate about. It's not what I'm wanting to put my time and energy into. Whereas when I go into a setting where I don't have a coach, it's that's still a priority for me. It's important, but I can go in and do the things that are more important to me. I can go in and do a 30-minute or 1 hour training session if I need to, and it's fine. And if I need to go in and I can go in and if Gary's in there benching, I can go bench with Gary.
Right.
For me, that's going to bring so much more joy and fulfillment in my life for the phase I'm in right now, what my priorities are right now, than doing a 2 or 3 hour program. Because after this 500-pound squat, I don't really have like a lot of big goals in regard to powerlifting. It's like a chapter, at least on the kind of hardcore competitive size chapter, I'm comfortable and happy with kind of closing right now. And maybe I'll open it back up. Maybe 10 years from now, I decide I want to, jump into competing in masters or whatever. And kids are older and I've got more time, and, that's fine. The other big thing is whatever you're doing right now does not have to be forever. It does not have to be permanent. You just got to figure out what's serving you right now and what's not. And for me right now, it's just not something that's serving me. But along with that, because the business and everything we're doing here with Impossible Performance is so important to me, I may look at hiring a coach for that instead, because that's the higher priority and that's the thing I want to put the time and energy and resources into. So big whole explanation, but I think I've found myself, and that's the journey I've been on, but I think it's so easy to get tripped up in that and getting your priorities misaligned, especially in regard to where you're distributing your resources. And I think that especially when you're on a mission, you've got a vision for life, that can create a lot of pain and frustration in life that'll allow you to not serve all the other priorities you have at the highest level you want to be able to. So I think it's a huge piece, and that's why I love so much that you bring up that lifestyle aspect to bodybuilding, because I think bodybuilding is a perfect sport that really reflects that, because you can go out and compete in powerlifting like just for fun whenever you want to, and you're not going to be as absolutely strong as you could be. But I feel like bodybuilding is a sport where you could go kind of train bodybuilding style, but if you're going to step on stage, I feel like it's not really something you can just go out and do just for fun, and you can't really like half-ass your diet and half-ass your training and things like that. Like, you kind of got to be all in or not all in. Is that kind of the truth of the situation?
Yeah, that I would agree with that. I mean, you could technically sign up and just go and do it for fun, because there are people that do it, but
Really?
they get dead last.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah.
And I mean, it does kind of take away from the sport a little bit when people do decide to do that. But there are also different, there's different federations too. Like, it's not all NPC, IFBB. Like, Christian Guzman puts on a show it's its own thing. It's not tied to a federation. It's called Summer Shredding. It's in Texas, and they have a transformation category.
Okay.
So it's not all about like, okay, who's the biggest, most jacked, shredded person here. Like, I don't know exactly how it works, but basically, it goes like they'll put on like in the screen in the background, like a picture of them when they first started their diet and like training for the show, and then like they get on stage and maybe they're wearing like men's physique trunks or whatever. But it's about who made the biggest transformation. He gives out like a big cash prize and like sponsors them with Alpha Elite and everything, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I've seen a guy, I think that, I don't know if it was this specific show, but I've seen a guy online that did the transformation category, and he was like 600 pounds at one point. Yeah. And with and he's even had surgery now, but the surgery can only do so much, I think, when you were at 600 pounds, like your surgery can only do so much. So like he looks great and phenomenal, but he's still got like loose skin around his knees, and his, ankles still have some swelling and things like that. And so it's like he's probably never going to step on stage and like be hyper competitive at the weight class he may be in traditional bodybuilding. But the transformation he's done is still like a really huge, phenomenal thing. And he's got himself really healthy, built up a lot of muscle, obviously lost tons of fat, and still got pretty crazy lean on stage for the time period he was in that transformation. And so I think it's cool to see things like that as well. I agree. But for him, I don't think for him it was ever about being the best bodybuilder possible. It was about how can I get myself as healthy as possible. And, sometimes that's a different pursuit too. So.
Right. But yeah, going back to what you said about like you can't just half-ass your diet or half-ass your training and step on stage. I mean, if you want to be competitive, or maybe not even be competitive, but just be the best that you can be at that time on stage. Like, yeah, you have to be all in.
Yeah.
But there are still ways around it, because I mean, like this last show I did, I mean, I went out and I won my category, or won my class, and then placed second overall. I mean, I'm still working.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still going to school. And then, like, I mean, I still have my time with Skylar and, like, my family and everything. But that's why I don't tie myself down. Okay, I have to train at this certain time. Like, I mean, I take my meals with me everywhere I go, so I can get my meals in, get my water in no matter what. Like, that's not going to take anything away from the rest of my life. But, like, certain times, like, I'll either have to train after class or train before class or after work or before work, or, like, maybe I have a day off and I train that day, or maybe I have a day off and, like, we're going to go and do something, so maybe I use that as a rest day. There's a lot of ways to structure your training and your diet that it doesn't have such a huge impact and take away from the rest of your life. And I think a lot of people don't always realize that.
Yeah. And that's why I love your journey and your message so much, particularly in regards to this lifestyle piece you've given out, because you do have a lot of different priorities that you focus on, but you've got bodybuilding as this like core central passion, and you've been able to create and construct a lifestyle that is conducive to allowing you to hit all of these priorities that you want to hit in your life. You know, still create a relationship and spend time with Skylar, still spend time with your family, still make sure you're excelling in your nursing program and, you know, creating a career for yourself in that area. But at the same time, you're still able to compete at bodybuilding at a very high level. And that's the coolest part, I think, of what you've done so far, is because you've created this lifestyle around it. You've created a priority structure, and you know exactly what's non-negotiable in your life and what can be negotiated, like
right.
training time, you know, things like that. And so when you take that approach and you build that kind of lifestyle, then you can apply that to anything, you know. No matter what you end up chasing in life, you know, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, however your priorities might change in that time, you've still built the skill of constructing a lifestyle, constructing a priority structure that you can stick to, and you know what's important, and you know what you need to execute on, and you know what you can be looser on. And I think that's a really incredible lesson for people to learn, because nobody, I don't care who you are, nobody has the ability, even if you're like a professional Olympian. Like, I'm sure Derek Lunsford still has, like, he is not in that vacuum of all he does is sleep, train, and eat. You know, like, I'm sure even he has other things like sponsorship deals, and he's got to go do autograph signings, I'm sure. And I don't know what all they may be, but he may have other, I'm sure even he has things that are not necessarily 100% focused on being on stage, you know, and that's okay. That's all how all of our lives are constructed. We've all got, you know, priorities and different things going on in life, but we can all build a lifestyle that serves our mission and our vision as highly as possible for the life we want to create right now. And I think your story and your journey has been a perfect testament to that. And dude, I can't wait to see what you make happen going forward, because the next goal is Pro Card, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm gonna after, like, we take some time to grow, because I do need to grow a little bit more, and, you know, take this off season looking at competing again in May of next year, or this coming year, I guess, and trying to get my Pro Card then.
Okay, perfect, man. So that's what, like 9 months away right now?
Yeah, right about.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, I can't wait to see it. Can't wait to see you step on stage and get that Pro Card and see what you make happen after that. One last thing I wanted to get your thoughts on, because this is always a hotly debated topic, and not to throw you on the spot here, but if you could rank number one greatest of all time, who is the best bodybuilder who's ever lived?
There's a lot of different ways to think about that. I mean, if you're gonna go by Olympia titles, it's obviously wrong.
Just for you, your personal standards. Who do you believe is the best bodybuilder of all time?
This is a hot take.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people are going to agree with it.
Yeah.
But for me, I really think that Chris Bumstead's been the greatest as far as I'm concerned, because he was so dominant.
Yeah.
Like, he won his first Olympia, and then he won every year until he retired. And he could have kept winning. Like, he just didn't, like, you know, he had a family. He was like, I've done enough. I'm going to retire. Yeah. And then he also jumped into the open category and placed second in Prague. And, I mean, some people thought he should have won that show and qualified for the Olympia as an open bodybuilder. Yeah. So, I think Chris was really, really good. Yeah. But, I mean, if you're going to go on, like, impact of the sport, it's Arnold. He had the biggest impact on the sport. And then the Olympia titles, it's Ronnie. But for me, I just really love Chris's look. Like, he has a great structure, obviously. Like, he looks phenomenal. He was just so dominant. Because when he got on stage, you know who's going to win. Like, Chris is winning every year.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's holding a candle to him.
Yeah. And even for people like me and Austin who don't have that eye for bodybuilding and understanding of it, like, even we could see, like, oh, he's clearly, like, leagues beyond everybody else on stage.
Right.
Like, it's
he was incredible to see on stage. Like, just the physique in general, like you were saying, it's just awesome to look at and just to see there on stage. I really love that. And I love following like Urs and Dino as well, but it's just whenever he got on stage, it was just like, okay, yep, that's the champion
and
right
like,
there.
And, like, you know, you have all these, like, social media outlets that are focused on bodybuilding, or hyping all these guys up. Like, you know, they're hyping up Dino, and they're like, oh, is he going to take the title from Chris this year? And they go on stage, and it's like, okay, well, that's not going to happen. Nope. Because there's everybody else, and then there was Chris.
Yeah.
But beyond all that, too, I think there had to be a level of him and his life that you loved in his career, because I think he's probably one of the people that more than anybody else has really created a next level lifestyle around bodybuilding. Like, yes, it was like his number one 100% focus, and he never missed meals, like never missed training, things like that. But he also, what I loved about what he did is he also showed that, you know, hey, I'm like a human as well. And he's like, you can have a relationship, you can even have a baby, because during his last Olympia that he won, and during the Prague show, he still had a baby at home. Like, right. You can live your life, you can have these things you want in life. And now he's created businesses around bodybuilding, and he's probably going to go on to be an icon, you know, at or near the level that Arnold has been in his life, you know, by the end of Chris's life. And so I think he's shown that, like, you can create this lifestyle around bodybuilding, and you can incorporate family, friends, business, career. You can incorporate all of that into it and still compete and win at the very highest level. And I think that's just such a great message to everybody that follows him, whether you're a bodybuilder or not, because it's a reinforcement of that idea that we can have it all once we figure out, like, what are our priorities in life. Not that you won't make sacrifices. You'll always have to make sacrifices, and making those sacrifices are good because you learn lessons, and you build a better group of people around that lifestyle, and whatever else it may be. But you can still construct your life in a manner that you achieve and win in the ways that you need to, in the ways you want to, no matter what your passion is in life. And I fully believe that. And so that's a big thing that we, you know, try to help guide people to. And I think Chris has just done an absolutely phenomenal job at that, and throughout the course of his whole career.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then one more thing I did want to mention before we end off here is, I need to check the date. I believe it's September 27th.
Okay.
Yeah, so Saturday, September 27th, they're putting on, it's a free seminar. It's a intro to bodybuilding seminar at Strength Warehouse in Belpre.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to be speaking, Skylar's going to be speaking, and some of the other local bodybuilders and a couple people I don't know are going to be there. It's free to come. So, if you're looking to get into the sport or just learn more about it or learn more about training, definitely recommend coming.
Absolutely, man. That's here in town. So we'll definitely put up the details for that on our socials along with this episode, because I think things like that are really great ways for some of the periods we talked about earlier in the episode, where if you're just getting into training, or if you've been into training, you feel like you might want to step on stage. Things like this are going to be phenomenal resources for you guys, and especially with a low barrier to entry, because you said it's free to get in, right?
Yep.
You just come out and watch and learn from some great people who have stepped on stage. So I think that's awesome you're doing that, man. And it's a great way to give back to the sport. And I also feel like anytime you go out and instruct other people, no matter what level you're at, you always end up learning so much yourself about the sport and about your own pursuit. So awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you coming out here and having this discussion with us. I love everything we learned about lifestyle from you, and I think it's a great reflection on everything we're going to kind of be talking about going forward, and how to build this impossible mindset, but really constructing what we would call an impossible life, geared towards everything that you're passionate about in life, everything that's a priority to you in life, and everything you want to achieve at in life. So appreciate you coming on and sharing all that, man. Wish you the best going forward, but I know you're going to absolutely kill it, because you've built this lifestyle. You've created the life that you need to win and achieve, and that's really what we talk about when we talk about Be Impossible, creating the version of yourself who's capable of going on to achieve those impossible things you never would have dreamed you were capable of. And I know that's exactly what you're going to do when you step on stage, turn that pro card, man.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on. It was awesome. Glad we could finally make it happen. I know we've been trying to for a while now.
Absolutely. Well, I think the timing's perfect, man, with the shift we're getting ready to have, and what you're chasing right now. So appreciate you coming on. Absolutely. Austin, brother, you got anything else?
No, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right, guys, you know that on this show, the number one thing we ask for you is not about sponsorships. It's not about ads. It's not about any of that. Even though we have some great companies we work with, like Lifecycle and Kinetic and King and Fifth, if you guys want to check them out, the links are all in the description below. But the number one thing we ask of you is, if this show meant something to you or impacted you in some way, which we absolutely know it did, please share it with anyone you know who you think it could help. Because at the end of the day, that is how we achieve our mission and our vision at Impossible Performance, of building a global culture of strength, fostering a spirit of growth in constant pursuit of the impossible. Thank you for listening, and as always, be impossible.